I'm Olivia Mitchell, 34, and I've built my dream home and thriving interior design business without my family's support. After 9 years of silence since they disowned me, my phone rang last Tuesday. My mother's voice, eerily pleasant, caught me off guard. "Olivia, darling, how are you? We need to discuss your brother Ryan's wedding." My stomach dropped instantly. I never expected what came next. Before I dive into this wild story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe. If you've ever had family suddenly reappear when they needed something from you. Growing up as the eldest child in the Mitchell family was a master class, an invisible labor and unappreciated effort. From my earliest memories, I was the responsible one, the planner, the helper. My brother Ryan, 3 years younger, existed in an entirely different universe within the same household. Our family home in suburban Massachusetts looked picture perfect from the outside. Dad worked as a financial advisor for wealthy clients. Mom maintained her status in local social circles, and we attended the right schools and right activities. But beneath that polished exterior, a painful dynamic played out daily. While I studied diligently, maintained perfect grades, and helped around the house without being asked, Ryan coasted through life on charm and minimal effort. When I brought home straight A's, my report card would receive a cursory glance. "That's what we expect from you, Olivia," Dad would say without looking up from his newspaper. When Ryan managed to pull C's up to B's, my parents threw celebration dinners and bought him expensive gifts. My 16th birthday passed with only a perfunctory card and small family dinner. 2 months later, when Ryan turned 13, my parents rented out an entire arcade and invited 50 kids. I still remember helping Mom place party favors and gift bags while swallowing the bitter pill of inequity. The pattern continued through everything. When I won first place in the state art competition with a furniture design project in 11th grade, my mother merely noted it would look good on college applications before changing the subject to Ryan's upcoming baseball game. Dad didn't even attend the award ceremony, claiming an important client meeting despite the constant dismissal. My passion for design and renovation flourished. Our historic family home fascinated me with its architectural details and hidden potential. I spent hours sketching redesigns of rooms, reading design magazines, and visiting open houses just to study the interior elements. When I was 17, I spent an entire summer transforming our neglected sunroom into a stunning reading nook with window seats and built-in bookshelves. I found discarded materials, learned techniques from library books and early YouTube tutorials, and created something beautiful from nothing. Mom used it constantly for her book club gatherings, proudly showing it off without ever mentioning I'd built it. Dad merely grumbled about the paint smell lingering. College applications arrived, and I received scholarships to several excellent design programs. My parents pushed me toward business school instead. Interior design is a hobby, not a career. Dad insisted you need something practical. I compromised by double majoring in business and design at a state university that offered both, primarily to reduce costs. Those college years revealed even more starkly the different standards applied to Ryan and me. I worked 3 part-time jobs to cover expenses beyond my partial scholarship. Meanwhile, Ryan attended an expensive private university with everything paid for. Despite his mediocre grades and tendency to switch majors whenever coursework became challenging during sophomore year, I met James, a brilliant architecture student who shared my passion for restoration and design. We dated for nearly 2 years, becoming truly serious when I brought him home. My parents were coldly polite at best. Later, Mom pulled me aside to mention he lacked ambition because his family owned a small construction business rather than having professional careers. The irony that his background perfectly complemented my design interests was completely lost on her. Through these experiences, I learned self-reliance and began building my own support network outside my biological family. My roommate Zoe became the sister I wished I'd had, celebrating my wins and helping me through disappointments. I formed close friendships with other design students who recognized my talent when my family couldn't be bothered. By senior year, I had created an impressive portfolio, working on small renovation projects, helping professors with design competitions, and interning at a respected local firm. I graduated with honors with job offers from 3 different companies. Ryan, meanwhile, was on his 5th major with my parents, still cheerfully funding his journey of self-discovery. I accepted a position with a boutique design firm in Boston, moved into a tiny apartment with Zoe, and began establishing my professional reputation. Every holiday and family gathering remained an exercise in invisibility. Conversations centered around Ryan's latest interest, my father's business connections, and my mother's social calendar. My growing success in a field they had dismissed went largely unacknowledged for years. I maintained the relationship out of obligation, showing up for holidays, sending appropriate gifts, making the expected phone calls. I kept hoping that professional success might finally earn their respect, that proven results would matter more than their preconceptions. I was wrong in ways I couldn't have imagined. After 3 years working at the Boston design firm, I had built an impressive client list and gained valuable experience with both residential and commercial projects. My name appeared in regional design magazines, and I'd established connections throughout the industry. More importantly, I'd saved nearly every penny possible, living frugally while watching my bank account grow toward a specific goal. At 25, I made the decision to launch my own interior design business. The timing felt right. I had the experience to connections and enough savings to survive the lean startup months. My business plan was meticulous, reflecting both my design training and business education. I'd already secured verbal commitments from 3 clients willing to follow me from the firm. Excited about this new chapter, I scheduled dinner with my parents to share my plans. Looking back, I recognize the naive hope driving that decision. Some stubborn part of me still believed they would eventually see my worth. If only I achieved enough. We met at their favorite restaurant, an overpriced steakhouse, where the manager greeted my father by name. Ryan joined us, currently between jobs after graduating with a communications degree. He showed little interest in using. My mother spent the first 20 minutes discussing the country club's upcoming charity gala. Before I could steer the conversation toward my news, I wanted to share something important with you all. I began, unable to hide my enthusiasm. I've decided to start my own interior design business. I've already lined up initial clients and found affordable office space. The silence that followed felt endless. My father set down his fork deliberately, napkin dabbing at his mouth before he spoke. "That's completely irresponsible," he said, voice controlled but cold. "You have a stable position at a respected firm. Why would you throw that away?" "I'm not throwing anything away," I explained. "I'm building something of my own. The business plan projects profitability within 18 months, and I have savings to cover." "Savings won't last when you're hemorrhaging money on a failed venture," my father interrupted. "This industry is fickle, Olivia. You're being foolish." My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "What will we tell everyone, that you quit a perfectly good job to chase some fantasy?" Ryan smirked slightly, clearly enjoying my parental takedown. "Maybe she can design my apartment when I find a place," he offered, which somehow only made things worse. "Actually," my father said, leaning forward, "I've been meaning to discuss something with you, Olivia. Charles Whitman, my golf partner, mentioned his company is looking for someone to manage their commercial properties. It would mean a significant salary increase for you, plus real career advancement opportunities." I recognized the name immediately. Charles Whitman's company specialized in developing cookie-cutter strip malls and office parks, prioritizing cost-cutting over design or sustainability. The exact opposite of everything I valued professionally. "Thank you, but I'm not interested," I said firmly. "I've worked too hard developing my design skills to abandon them for property management." My father's face darkened. "This isn't some suggestion, Olivia. I've already spoken to Charles about you. He's expecting your call tomorrow." The implication stunned me. "You told someone I'd take a job without even consulting me first." "I'm looking out for your future," he snapped. "It's time you grew up and accepted some guidance from people who know better." Something shifted inside me at that moment. Years of diminishment dismissal and conditional approval crystallized into sudden clarity. I was 25 years old, professionally accomplished, financially responsible, and still being treated like an incapable child. "No," I said quietly. "I won't be calling Mr. Whitman. I'm starting my own business as I planned." "If you pursue this ridiculous design business," my father said, voice dangerously controlled, "you can forget about any support from this family, financial or otherwise." "Robert," my mother murmured, glancing around at nearby tables. "I mean it," he continued. "I won't stand by watching you throw away security for some creative whim. Either you take the position with Charles, or you're on your own completely." I looked at my brother, who studied his whiskey with sudden fascination. No help there, as always. "I guess I'm on my own then," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "Don't be dramatic," my mother hissed. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm making a business decision." I replied deliberately, using language my father respected. I've evaluated the options and determined that starting my own firm offers the best return on investment for my skills and interests. My father's face flushed deep red. Get out, he said quietly. If you're so determined to ruin your life against my explicit advice, you can do it without any connection to this family. Dad Ryan finally interjected. Maybe that's a bit. Stay out of this. My father snapped at him, then back to me. I want your keys to the house. Don't contact us. Don't use our name as a reference. You wanted independence. Congratulations, you have it completely. I placed my house keys on the table, hands trembling slightly but resolve firm. Goodbye then, I said, standing up. Neither my mother nor Ryan made any move to stop what was happening. That night I cried in Zoe's apartment, the full weight of familial rejection crashing down, but by morning determination had replaced despair. If this was the price of self-determination, I would pay it and prove them wrong in the process. The following months tested my resolve daily. Launching a business from scratch while processing family trauma created challenges I hadn't fully anticipated. 2 of the 3 clients who had promised to follow me backed out after mysterious phone calls. I strongly suspected my father's interference, but couldn't prove it. I took on small projects that barely covered expenses. I worked 18-hour days, handling everything from design to bookkeeping to marketing. I slept on a futon in my tiny office space for 3 months to save on rent. But slowly, tenaciously, I built something meaningful. A local restaurant renovation caught the attention of a prominent food blogger, bringing additional commercial clients. A well-connected elderly client loved my residential redesign of her condo and referred me to her equally wealthy friends. Through it all, the silence from my family remained absolute. No calls on my birthday, no contact at Christmas. Ryan never reached out, clearly choosing parental approval over sibling loyalty. I sent 1 card that first Christmas, received no response, and never tried again. The severing was painful, but ultimately clarifying. For the first time, I could focus entirely on my own vision without the weight of their disappointment as constant background noise. I built my business client by client, project by project, with no safety net and no validation except the growing success reflected in my work. The years following the disowning transformed me in ways beyond just professional success, without the constant undertow of family disapproval. I discovered versions of myself previously hidden. My personality expanded. Friends commented on my increased confidence, my readiness to laugh, my willingness to take creative risks. My business, Vitchell Design and Restoration, established a solid reputation by year 3. I specialized in honoring architectural history while creating functionally modern spaces. Magazine features followed first in regional publications, then in national ones. My client waitlist grew to 6 months, then a year. By year 5, I had 7 employees and had moved from my tiny initial office to a beautiful converted warehouse space that showcased my design philosophy. Financial success followed the creative recognition, allowing me to finally consider the personal dream I deferred while building my business. At 30, I began searching for a property that could become both my home and a testament to my design vision. After months of searching, I found it a neglected 1780s colonial on 3 acres in a historic Connecticut town. The house had good bones but required extensive renovation after years of neglect. Most buyers were intimidated by the scope of work needed. I saw only possibility. The purchase depleted much of my savings, but I had absolute confidence in my ability to transform the property. I created a 3-year renovation plan, breaking the massive project into manageable phases, while I continued running my business. Those renovation years tested every skill and resource I possessed. I lived in 2 habitable rooms while working on the others. I learned new techniques, collaborated with skilled artisans, and solved structural problems that had hidden beneath cosmetic issues for decades. Weekends disappeared into sanding floors, restoring original woodwork, and researching historically appropriate materials. I installed a modern kitchen that respected the home's character while providing functionality. I converted the attached barn into a stunning home office with soaring ceilings and exposed beams. The grounds received equal attention. I restored the overgrown gardens, installed a stone patio for entertaining, and added a small but elegant swimming pool that looked as though it had always belonged on the property. Throughout this transformation, I documented the process, sharing it through my business's social media accounts and website. The before and after photos generated substantial attention, bringing new clients who wanted similar magic, worked on their historic properties. When Architectural Digest featured my completed home in a 10-page spread titled Personal Renaissance, the validation felt especially sweet. The magazine lay open on my coffee table for months, tangible proof of what I'd accomplished without my family's support or approval. During these years of creation and growth, my social world evolved alongside my professional one. Zoe remained my closest friend, eventually moving to a neighboring town with her husband and children. I formed deep connections with fellow entrepreneurs who understood the unique pressures of building something from nothing. Kelly, a landscape architect, who helped with my garden restoration, became a regular dinner companion and confidant. Marcus and David, a couple who owned the town's best restaurant, included me in their famous Sunday brunches. My contractors, initially just professional connections, became friends who invited me to family barbecues and holiday gatherings. Together, these people formed my chosen family. They celebrated my successes without qualification and supported me through inevitable setbacks. They remembered my birthday, included me in their holiday traditions, and never made me feel like an obligation. Romantic relationships proved more challenging. 2 promising connections ended when men I was dating revealed their discomfort with my financial success or workaholic tendencies. Another relationship lasted nearly a year before my trust issues created an insurmountable barrier. He wanted emotional openness I couldn't provide. After years of familial rejection, therapy helped me navigate these patterns. Dr. Lillian, a no-nonsense therapist specializing in family trauma, guided me through understanding what had happened without downplaying its impact. "Your parents failed you," she stated in our 3rd session, "not because you were unworthy of love, but because their conditional approval system was fundamentally broken." Those sessions helped me recognize that the desire for parental approval had shaped many of my life choices, even as I rebelled against their specific expectations. I learned to identify when I was making decisions to prove them wrong versus choices aligned with my authentic values. Throughout these 9 years of growth and healing, the absence of my biological family remained a constant. Major holidays initially brought waves of grief, but over time, new traditions with my chosen family filled those spaces with genuine joy instead of obligation. I experienced occasional ambushes of information about my family through mutual connections. Ryan had finally settled into a job at a marketing firm owned by my father's friend. My parents had taken a 3-month European cruise for their 40th anniversary. These snippets arrived like dispatches from a foreign country I once lived in, but could barely remember. In year 7 after the disowning, during a particularly successful period following my 2nd National Design Award, I made one attempt at reconnection. I sent a simple card with my contact information and a note saying I was open to conversation if they were interested. No response ever came by the 9th year. As I approached my 34th birthday, I had made peace with the permanence of the estrangement. My home had become not just my sanctuary, but a physical manifestation of my journey. Every restored beam, every carefully chosen fixture, represented a choice made according to my values, not anyone else's expectations. I had created a life that felt authentic, surrounded myself with people who showed up consistently, and built a business that allowed me to share my creative vision with the world. If that journey had required leaving behind those who couldn't celebrate my path, so be it. Then the phone rang on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in April, and my mother's voice emerged from the speaker as if the 9-year silence had never occurred. I was reviewing kitchen plans for a client's lakeside renovation when my phone displayed a number I hadn't seen in 9 years, but instantly recognized. My heart lurched, fingers hovering over the screen before I finally answered. "Hello," I managed. My professional voice automatically activates like armor. "Olivia, darling?" My mother's voice flowed with warmth that seemed eerily displaced, as though we'd spoken last week instead of nearly a decade ago. It's Mom. The surreal quality of hearing her voice left me momentarily speechless. She filled the silence without hesitation. "How have you been, sweetheart?" It's been too long. No acknowledgement of exactly why it had been so long. No recognition of her role in our estrangement. "I'm well," I replied carefully. "This is unexpected." "Well, families should stay connected, shouldn't they?" She laughed lightly, the sound triggering memories of cocktail parties where she'd used the same laugh with people she privately criticized. "I've been thinking about you, have you?" It wasn't a question, of course. "And I saw that magazine with your house. Very creative. You always did have unusual ideas. The backhanded compliment was so familiar, it almost made me smile. 9 years and nothing had changed. What can I do for you, Mom? I asked directly. This wasn't a reconciliation call. Her tone made that clear enough. Well, as it happens, we have some exciting news. Your brother Ryan is getting married to Caroline Westfield. You remember the Westfields, of course. Her father and your dad have done business together for years. I didn't remember the Westfields, but it hardly mattered. Congratulations to Ryan, I said neutrally. Yes, it's wonderful. They make such a handsome couple. The wedding is planned for June 25th. Just small, really. Only about 200 people. My grip tightened on the phone, the casual way she dropped this information, as if I would naturally be included in this event after 9 years of complete silence, was breathtaking in its presumption. That's nice, I said, waiting for the actual point of this call. The thing is, my mother continued, her voice shifting to the slightly higher pitch she used when making difficult requests. They've had a terrible situation with their venue. The country club had a fire in their main event space. Nothing serious, just smoke damage. But it needs complete restoration. They've had to cancel all events for the next 3 months. My stomach tightened as I began to see where this was heading. That's unfortunate, I said. Indeed. So we've been scrambling to find an alternate location that can accommodate everyone on such short notice. Everything suitable is booked solid. The pause that followed seemed designed for me to offer a solution. I remained silent. Then I saw that magazine spread of your home. She continued when I didn't take the bait. And it's perfect, Olivia. Those gorgeous grounds, that massive patio. Your renovations really did turn out nicely. It would be absolutely ideal for Ryan's wedding. The audacity momentarily stole my breath. 9 years without contact. And now my family home was ideal for my brother's wedding. You want Ryan to have his wedding at my house, I clarified. Certain I must be misunderstanding. It would be such a beautiful setting. Caroline's mother agrees completely. We thought the ceremony in your garden, cocktails on the patio, dinner in a tent. On the lawn, the weather should be lovely in June. I struggled to process the magnitude of what she was suggesting. Mom, that would involve hundreds of strangers in my private home. Not strangers, darling family and close friends. She paused. It would be a chance to let bygones be bygones, don't you think? Water under the bridge, family coming together in a crisis. The casual reframing of their 9-year rejection as bygones sent a wave of anger through me. This wasn't an olive branch. It was a utilitarian assessment of my property's value to their immediate needs. I need to think about this, I said, buying time while my thoughts whirled. It's a significant request. Of course, she replied smoothly, but we do need to know quite soon. The invitations should have gone out last week. Your father will call you tomorrow to discuss logistics. I'm sure you two can work everything out. The call ended shortly after, with my mother extracting only my non-committal agreement to consider the request. I sat at my desk, stunned by the interaction, anger and disbelief churning through me. True to my mother's word, my father called the next day. His approach lacked even her thin veneer of warmth. Olivia, your mother tells me you're considering hosting Ryan's wedding. Good. We'll need to begin preparations immediately. I'll have our event planner contact you to assess the space requirements. I haven't actually agreed to anything yet, I replied, finding my footing. This is a significant imposition, especially given our history. History is irrelevant here. He dismissed. This is about families stepping up in a crisis. Ryan needs this. The Westfield connection is important for his future. The familiar dynamic reasserted itself with stunning efficiency. Ryan's needs paramount. My boundaries irrelevant. I understand it's important to you, I said carefully, but hosting 200 people is extremely disruptive. My home is also my business showcase, and I'm not comfortable with this level of re-engagement after 9 years of no contact. This isn't about your comfort, he snapped. It's about doing what's right for the family. I expected more maturity from you, Olivia. The conversation deteriorated from there, ending with my father demanding I stop being difficult and give them an answer within 24 hours before I could fully process these interactions. Ryan himself called his approach differed from both our parents, but proved equally manipulative. Hey sis, he greeted with forced casualness. Long time, 9 years, I confirmed. Yeah, well, life gets busy, you know. He chuckled uncomfortably. So about this wedding thing, Caroline is really stressed about the venue situation. You'd love her, by the way. Super creative. Like you. I'm happy for you, Ryan, I said sincerely. Despite everything, I didn't wish him ill, but I'm not sure about hosting your wedding. Come on, it would be perfect. We saw your place in that magazine. Caroline literally cried, said it was her dream venue, much better than the stuffy country club. Anyway, it's not just a venue, Ryan. It's my home. Yeah, but it's a big home. You've done really well for yourself, which is awesome. And it would mean a lot to have my only sister involved in my wedding day. The emotional appeal might have worked if he hadn't immediately followed it with. Plus, Caroline's parents are covering all costs. They'll even pay you a site fee if that helps, though, family discount and all that. The conversation revealed that they'd already planned everything around my property without my consent. Ryan talked about where the catering trucks would park, which bathrooms guests would use, and how the wedding party would use my master bedroom suite to prepare. When I expressed concern about 200 strangers having access to my home, he laughed. They're not random people off the street live. There are social circle dads, business associates, mom's club friends. Caroline's family knows literally everyone who matters in Connecticut. The implication being, of course, that these people mattered more than my privacy and boundaries. By the end of that day, I'd received 7 more calls, 2 from my mother, 1 from an event planner who'd apparently already been retained, 1 from Ryan's fiancée Caroline, who I'd never met, and 3 from extended family members who suddenly remembered my existence. My Aunt Susan, who hadn't sent so much as a Christmas card in 9 years, called to say family needs to come together in times like these. Your father may be stubborn, but surely you're big enough to move past all that unpleasantness, the unpleasantness being my complete excision from the family for daring to chart my own path. The barrage continued into the next day. My cousin Michael texted that I shouldn't punish Ryan for Dad's decisions. Ryan's fiancée Caroline sent a gushing email about how she'd always admired my design aesthetic and included a Pinterest board of wedding ideas already tailored to my property's features. The final straw came when I received an anonymous complaint filed against my business claiming code violations at my office. The timing made the source transparently obvious. The inspection found nothing, but the message was clear. Cooperation would be rewarded, resistance punished. That evening, scrolling through social media to distract myself, I froze when a post from Caroline appeared through a mutual connection. It featured a professional photo of my home's exterior, taken from my business website, captioned, "Cannot wait to celebrate our special day at this dream venue. 63 days until forever begins. Chalk Westfield Mitchell Wedding." The post already had dozens of comments and congratulations. With growing horror, I realized they had already decided my consent was considered a formality, not a requirement. The next morning, I received a text from my cousin Jennifer. Always the family gossip. Mom told me to keep it quiet, but thought you should know they already sent the invitations with your address last week. Aunt Linda said they figured once people RSVP'd, you wouldn't say no. Not cool, just FYI. The final confirmation came during an accidental encounter with Caroline's mother at my local coffee shop. An obvious reconnaissance mission, poorly disguised as code incidents. She gushed about finally meeting the sister-in-law-to-be and mentioned her excitement about seeing the property transformed for the wedding. When I carefully mentioned I hadn't actually agreed to host the event, her perfect smile froze. But the invitations, well, I'm sure you'll sort it out with your brother. Family always comes through in the end. By the time my mother called again that evening, my decision was made. "We really need your answer now, Olivia," she said. "The wedding planner needs to finalize contracts with vendors." "My answer is no," I replied with calm that surprised even me. "I'm not comfortable hosting this event." "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped. "Facade cracking, everything's already arranged. People have RSVP need. That's unfortunate. Since you arranged it all without my agreement, we assumed you'd want to be part of your brother's special day, after 9 years of no contact. That's quite an assumption." A telling silence followed before she recovered. "If this is about money, it's not about money. It's about respect for my home and my boundaries. For God's sake, Olivia, stop being so selfish. Ryan is your brother, a brother who hasn't spoken to me in 9 years and now wants to use my home without even a proper conversation. First, no. Find another venue." The conversation ended with my mother's warning that I'd regret this decision and my father would be in touch. The implicit threat hung in the air long after I hung up, after ending the calls with my mother. I knew the situation required careful handling. This wasn't just an unreasonable request. It was a coordinated campaign to override my autonomy. I needed to respond clearly, firmly, and with proper documentation. After consulting with both my therapist and my closest friends over an emergency dinner at my house, I drafted a formal email to my parents, Ryan and Caroline. Zoe, now an HR director, helped me craft language that was polite but unambiguous. After careful consideration, I must decline the request to host Ryan and Caroline's wedding at my home. While I wish you both happiness in your marriage, my property is not available as a wedding venue. Please respect this decision as final and make alternative arrangements immediately, particularly since invitations have apparently already been distributed using my address without my consent. Any vendors who contact me regarding this event will be informed that no such event has been authorized at this location. I sent the email with delivery and read receipts requested, then tried to return to my normal life and work. Their response was swift and multi-pronged. My father called within an hour, his voice controlled but vibrating with anger. This is absolutely unacceptable. After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done for me in the past 9 years? I interrupted, surprising myself with my directness. Don't take that tone with me. Your brother needs this. The Westfields are important connections. Then I suggest finding a venue they'll find equally impressive. My home is not available. This is how you repay your family with selfishness, after all the advantages you've had. The gaslighting was so blatant I almost laughed. Dad, you literally disowned me. You told me not to use the family name. You cut me off completely when I was 25. What advantages are you referring to exactly? That's ancient history. This is about now. About family obligation. Family obligation works both ways. You can't discard someone for 9 years, then claim family ties when convenient. The call ended with my father threatening vague consequences for my obstinacy. The text messages began immediately after my mother sent a series of increasingly emotional appeals. How could you embarrass us like this? Followed by, Ryan is devastated. And finally, I didn't raise you to be this cruel. Ryan's messages fluctuated between guilt-tripping. Thanks for ruining the most important day of my life, and attempts at negotiation. What if we cut the guest list to 150, 100? Caroline, whom I'd never met, sent a tear-filled voice message about her dream wedding being destroyed and how she'd always hoped to have a sister relationship with me. The obvious manipulation might have been comical if it weren't so invasive. By evening, extended family members I hadn't heard from in years were contacting me. Aunt Patricia called to explain I was tearing the family apart. Uncle James texted that my father was not a well man, and this stress could affect his heart. Cousins I'd played with as a child, but who had remained silent during my disowning, suddenly became concerned intermediaries. The next day brought an escalation I hadn't anticipated. A formal complaint was filed against my business with the town's Historic Preservation Board, claiming unauthorized modifications to my property. The inspection proved the allegations baseless, but the coincidental timing was unmistakable. 3 days after my refusal email, I received notice of an anonymous complaint to the health department regarding commercial activity at a residential property. Again, the inspection found nothing improper, as I had all necessary permits for my home office, but the hassle and stress were significant. Through professional contacts, I learned my father had been making inquiries about my business relationships, presumably seeking pressure points. A longtime client called to ask if everything was okay, mentioning that some financial advisor guy was asking strange questions about your business practices. The digital front opened next. Negative reviews suddenly appeared on my business profiles from accounts created within the previous 48 hours. Comments questioning my professionalism and reliability emerged on design forums I participated in again. The timing made the source obvious. 1 week after my refusal, I discovered through social media that invitations had indeed been sent with my address listed as the venue. Caroline's mother had posted photos of the invitation suite complete with my property's address and a stylized illustration of my home's distinctive facade. The post included details about valet parking arrangements and guest accommodations in nearby hotels. Comments from invited guests expressed excitement about seeing the stunning property featured in Architectural Digest. This discovery prompted me to search more thoroughly through social media. What I found stunned me. Caroline's wedding planning account included multiple posts about our venue with photos of my home taken from various angles, some clearly shot from the street during drive-bys. Her bridesmaids had shared posts about their upcoming fittings mentioning the gorgeous historic home where they'd be celebrating. Most alarmingly, I found evidence of a site visit I knew nothing about. A post from the wedding planner included a photo captioned "Initial walkthrough of the Mitchell property grounds for our pussy's big day." showing my back garden apparently taken by someone who had entered my property without permission while I was at work. I immediately contacted my attorney, who advised documenting everything and installing additional security measures. She also drafted a formal cease and desist letter to my parents, Ryan, Caroline, and the wedding planner, explicitly forbidding use of my address and wedding materials and prohibiting trespassing on my property. The cease and desist triggered another round of outraged calls. My mother left a voicemail so venomous, it was unrecognizable from her usual controlled tone. "You ungrateful, selfish girl. After everything we've done to humiliate your brother with legal threats, your father is right. You're dead to this family." Ryan called next, his voice slurring slightly, obviously having been drinking. "Really, Olivia, lawyers? Is that how far you'll go to ruin my wedding? You know what? I'm glad you won't be there. You'd probably find some way to make it all about you anyway." The most revealing call came from my father 2 days later. His voice was eerily calm, which historically signaled his most dangerous mood. "I've been patient with your theatrics, Olivia, but this has gone far enough. The invitations are sent. The vendors are contracted. Caroline's parents have guests flying in from Europe. None of which is my problem or responsibility," I replied. "You made these arrangements without my consent." "Your consent is irrelevant," he stated flatly. "This wedding will take place at your property. You can either cooperate graciously or make yourself look petty and vindictive to everyone who matters in Connecticut society. Your choice. Are you threatening to hold this event on my property against my explicit refusal?" "I'm stating facts. The 25th of June, your property will host Ryan's wedding. You can be a gracious hostess or embarrass yourself by making a scene. But this wedding is happening." After that chilling conversation, I reached out again to my attorney, who confirmed my fears. While I had clear legal rights to prevent this invasion, enforcement might require confrontation on the actual day, creating exactly the scene my father anticipated. A scene that, regardless of legal right, would be spun to make me look like the villain. The situation escalated further when I received an email accidentally forwarded to me by Caroline's mother. Clearly intended for the wedding planner, it detailed contingency plans if Olivia becomes difficult, including having a locksmith ready in case she changes the locks, and suggestions for keeping her occupied on the morning of the wedding so setup could proceed unimpeded. The most disturbing detail came at the end. Robert, my father, says if necessary, they can claim Olivia verbally agreed to the venue initially and then became unstable. Several family friends are willing to support this version of events. It was clear then that reasoning boundaries and even legal notices weren't going to stop. My family wasn't just ignoring my refusal. They were actively planning to override it by any means necessary. The final confirmation came through my cousin Jennifer, who had become my reluctant inside source. She texted, "Thought you should know. They're planning to just show up day before with vendors and wedding party figure. Once people start arriving, you won't make a scene. Uncle Robert said she'll cave when faced with reality." Just FYI, I realized I needed a more definitive countermeasure. They were counting on social pressure and my reluctance to create public conflict to protect my boundaries. I would need to remove that leverage entirely. With less than 7 weeks until the wedding date, I needed a comprehensive strategy. My family had made it clear they intended to steamroll over my refusal, counting on social pressure and conflict avoidance to force my capitulation on the day. Their plan relied entirely on my physical presence and the assumption that I wouldn't cause a scene. Once guests began arriving, I called an emergency council of my chosen family. Zoe, Kelly, Marcos, and David gathered in my living room for a strategy session that felt more like planning a military operation than addressing a family conflict. "They're counting on your conflict avoidance," Zoe observed, having witnessed my family dynamics firsthand years ago. "They know you were raised to preserve appearances at all costs, and they're using your property as if they have rights to it." Kelly added, professional indignation evident in her voice, as if your success belongs to them by extension. The solution, when it crystallized, was both simple and radical. Remove myself completely from the equation, not just refuse to participate, but ensure my absence was absolute, leaving no possibility for last-minute manipulation. First, I consulted with my attorney about legally protecting my property in my absence. She connected me with a senior partner who specialized in property rights and restraining orders. Together, we drafted comprehensive legal documentation, a formal property protection order prohibiting specific named individuals from entering my property. written notices to all vendors we could identify through Caroline's social media, legal notice to the town police department documenting the situation, trespass warnings to be posted on the property. Next came physical security. I contracted with a professional security company that specialized in estate protection. Their plan included 4 uniformed security officers stationed at all property entrances for the entire weekend, video surveillance covering all access points, protocols for respectfully but firmly turning away any visitors, documentation of all interaction in case of future legal claims with legal and physical protection arranged. I turned to my personal exit strategy. I booked an extended weekend at an exclusive resort in Nantucket, prepaid and non-refundable for the entire wedding weekend. This wouldn't just be an escape. It would be a proper self-care retreat during what would undoubtedly be an emotionally charged time. I blocked off my work calendar for the week before, and after ensuring I'd have buffer time to prepare and decompress, my assistant was briefed to decline all appointments and client requests during this period, citing a long-planned personal commitment. With my absence secured, I systematically closed potential loopholes my family might exploit. I changed all external door locks and security codes, temporarily revoked access for regular service providers like gardeners and housekeepers, arranged for my mail to be held at the post office, asked trusted neighbors to alert me to any unusual activity, installed additional outdoor cameras with remote monitoring capabilities. The final step involved communication. My attorney sent formal cease and desist letters to my parents Ryan and Caroline, the wedding planner, Caroline's parents. Every vendor identified through social media. Each letter explicitly stated that no wedding or event had been authorized at my property, that the address had been used without permission, and that any attempts to proceed would constitute criminal trespassing. My own communication was minimal but clear. I sent one final email to my parents, Ryan and Caroline. To be absolutely clear, there will be no wedding or event at my property on June 25th or any other date. The property will be secured and security personnel will prevent any attempted entry. Please immediately notify all guests and vendors of your venue. Change to avoid unnecessary embarrassment and inconvenience. The response was predictable. My mother called, alternating between tears and threats. Ryan sent a series of increasingly angry texts. My father left one voicemail stating simply, "You'll regret this level of hostility for the rest of your life." Caroline's parents, previously sheltered from the full reality of the situation by my family's manipulations, finally seemed to grasp the seriousness of the issue. Caroline's father called his tone businesslike. "I've just received a letter from your attorney. Is it your position that we never had permission to use your property?" "That's correct," I confirmed. I explicitly declined when first asked and have repeatedly refused since. A long pause followed. We were given to understand this was a family disagreement that would resolve itself, that you had initially agreed but were being difficult about details. That was never the case. I said no from the beginning, clearly and consistently. Another pause. "I see this puts us in a very difficult position with guests. I understand that's challenging, but it's a situation created entirely without my participation or consent." The conversation ended civilly, but coolly within hours. Jennifer texted that all hell has broken loose between my parents and the Westfields. Despite this apparent reality check from Caroline's father, my own family showed no signs of abandoning their plan. My father reportedly insisted they would handle Olivia and the wedding would proceed as planned. In the weeks that followed, I discovered through various sources that they were proceeding with a 2-track approach, publicly beginning to mention a possible venue change, while privately continuing with plans to use my property. Still believing I would cave under pressure, the most disturbing evidence came 3 weeks before the wedding date through a professional contact in the catering industry. I learned that the wedding caterer had scheduled a delivery and set up at my address beginning at 9 a.m. on the day before the ceremony. They had been told to arrive early before the property owner returns from an appointment. This confirmed my suspicion that they planned to begin setting up while assuming I would be away from the property, creating a fait accompli when I returned. The timing suggested they had been monitoring my movements, noting when I typically left for work or appointments. This discovery prompted my final countermeasures. I arranged for the security team to begin their coverage 3 days before the wedding, rather than the originally planned one day. I notified the police department of the updated timeline and potential for confrontation. Most importantly, I altered my own departure plans, arranging to leave for Nantucket 4 days before the wedding rather than 2, removing any possibility of last-minute interception or confrontation. The week before my departure, I methodically prepared my home, securing valuable items, documenting the condition of every room with dated photographs, and making arrangements for remote monitoring. I briefed my security team on all family members and wedding party members, providing photographs from social media to ensure they would recognize everyone involved. 2 days before my planned departure, Jennifer sent one final warning text we just overheard. They're still planning to show up with vendors early Friday morning. Uncle Robert convinced everyone you're bluffing about security, says, once wedding party arrives, you won't have the guts to make a scene. Be careful with that final confirmation. I completed my preparations with grim determination. 9 years ago, they had disowned me for refusing to bend to their will. Now they would discover exactly how completely I had outgrown their control. I left for Nantucket on Tuesday, 4 days before the planned wedding day. My home secured and protected my absence absolute at the ferry terminal. I turned off notifications from everyone except my security team and attorney. Whatever happened next, I would face it from a position of peace and strength, not reactive fear. Dawn broke clear and beautiful over Nantucket on Friday, June 24th, the day before my brother's planned wedding. I had intentionally booked an ocean view suite, and watching the sunrise from my balcony centered me for what would undoubtedly be a challenging day at precisely 9:30. My phone vibrated with the first security alert from the safety of my resort room. I opened the security app and connected to the live camera feed surrounding my property. The scene unfolded like a silent film. A white van with elite catering emblazoned on the side approached my driveway, followed by 2 luxury SUVs. As they reached the gate, they encountered the first security officer, a professionally dressed woman whose body language remained calm but firm as she spoke to the driver. I couldn't hear the exchange, but I could imagine it clearly. I'd prepared detailed scripts for the security team, emphasizing professionalism and documentation. The catering van remained at the gate for several minutes while the driver appeared to make phone calls. Eventually, they reluctantly reversed and parked along the street. Within 20 minutes, my parents' distinctive black Mercedes arrived, followed quickly by Ryan's Tesla. The confrontation at the gate intensified, with my father emerging from his car, gesturing emphatically. The security officer maintained her position, occasionally pointing to the posted property notices. My father appeared to be shouting now. His face flashed even on the small screen. My mother remained in the car, phone pressed to her ear, undoubtedly making emergency calls to salvage the situation. Ryan paced alongside the gate, running his hands through his hair in obvious distress. At 10:15, 2 more vehicles arrived, a white Range Rover I recognized from social media as belonging to Caroline's parents, and a compact car with the wedding planner's company logo. The cluster of people at my gate grew, with Caroline's father appearing to speak more reasonably with the security officer, while my father continued his animated objections. By 11, a police cruiser had arrived, presumably called by my father. This was expected. We'd briefed the local police department about the potential situation days earlier. The officer spoke with the security team, first examining their documentation, then had a lengthy conversation with my father and the Westfields. Even through the soundless feed, I could see the moment my father realized the law would not be intervening on his behalf. The next hour brought a parade of vendor vehicles, florists, rental companies, musicians, all turned away with the same message. No event was authorized at this address. Some left immediately, others joined the growing cluster of people on the street outside my property, creating an impromptu crisis committee. Shortly after noon, my attorney texted your father, called our office demanding to speak to a partner, claimed illegal obstruction of family event. Senior partner to call reiterated legal position and suggested finding alternate venue immediately to avoid guest disappointment. Call ended abruptly throughout the afternoon. The scene at my gate developed a desperate energy. Caroline arrived with her bridesmaid's tears visible even on the small screen as she gestured toward my house. My mother appeared to be making dozens of calls, presumably to find a last-minute alternative location. Ryan alternated between comforting Caroline and angry confrontations with the security team. By 4:30, the reality appeared to finally sink in. Vendor vehicles began departing one by one. The wedding planner could be seen speaking intensely, with both sets of parents likely outlining limited remaining options. Caroline's mother embraced her sobbing daughter. My father stood apart, phone to ear, face set in the cold anger I remembered from childhood at 5:45. The final vehicles departed. The security team texted confirmation that all wedding party members had left the premises. With my father's parting words recorded as "this isn't over," I sat on my balcony as sunset painted the ocean pink and gold. Experiencing a complex mix of emotions, there was no triumph in this outcome, no joy in disrupting what should have been a happy occasion for my brother. But beneath the complexity lay a bedrock of certainty. I had defended my boundaries when they were deliberately violated. After 9 years of rebuilding my life on my own terms, I had refused to allow my hard-won sanctuary to be co-opted without consent. I spent the remainder of the weekend in peaceful seclusion, swimming in the ocean, reading on the beach, and enjoying exquisite meals without checking social media or reading family messages. This was self-care, not avoidance. I would deal with the aftermath, but on my timeline, not theirs. Returning home Tuesday afternoon, I found my property exactly as I'd left it. Testimony to the effectiveness of the security team inside. Waiting in my mail pile were 3 handwritten notes that had been delivered by family members, but not accepted by security. One from my mother, one from Ryan, and one surprisingly from Caroline. I read them that evening with a glass of wine on my patio, the same patio they had planned to fill with wedding guests without my permission. My mother's note vibrated with cold fury, calling me selfish, vindictive, and unforgivable. "You've destroyed your brother's happiness out of spite," she wrote. "This family is better off without your toxic presence." Ryan's letter mixed anger with unexpected vulnerability. "You've ruined what should have been the best day of my life." He began but continued. "I don't understand what happened to us. We were close once. Did you hate me this much all along?" The closing line revealed volumes about his perspective. "I never did anything to deserve this level of cruelty from you." Caroline's note surprised me most. "I can't pretend to understand the history between you and your family," she wrote. "But I wish we could have met under different circumstances before all this escalated. Everyone kept telling me you would eventually agree that it was just a negotiation tactic. I should have reached out directly sooner. I'm sorry for the intrusion on your privacy." The lawn showed signs of minor vandalism. Decorative plants uprooted, a garden bench overturned. Petty expressions of rage that security had documented but deemed not worth confrontational intervention. In the weeks that followed, I maintained my silence as family members cycled through various approaches. My father's attorney sent a letter demanding compensation for wedding expenses lost due to your last-minute venue withdrawal, which my attorney dismissed with documented evidence of my consistent refusal from the beginning. My mother left voicemails alternating between tearful pleas about healing the family and vicious character assassinations. Extended family members sent messages ranging from gentle encouragement to reconnect to harsh condemnations of my cruelty. Ryan and Caroline ultimately held a significantly downsized wedding at Caroline's parents' country club, hastily arranged in an outdoor tent. Social media photos showed strange smiles and noticeably fewer guests than the original 200 planned. No family member acknowledged the venue change publicly, creating an awkward gap in the wedding narrative shared online. 3 weeks after the wedding date, my mother appeared unannounced at my front door. Security had ended their coverage, so nothing prevented this ambush through the security camera. I watched her ring the bell repeatedly, her perfect posture and carefully arranged expression belying the tension evident in her tightly gripped handbag. After a moment's hesitation, I opened the door, but remained in the doorway, physically blocking entrance to my home. "May I come in?" she asked. Voice carefully modulated to social politeness. "No," I replied simply. "I prefer to keep this brief." Her mask slipped, slightly irritation flashing across her features before she recovered. I thought it was time we spoke directly without all the lawyers and drama. There was a direct conversation possible at any point. I noted before invitations were printed with my address, before vendors were contracted, before family members were enlisted as pressure tactics. "You've made your point, Olivia." Very dramatically, I might add. "But surely it's time to move past this pettiness. We're family after all." The casual dismissal of boundaries as pettiness and the selective application of family status, when convenient, crystallized everything wrong with our dynamic. "We're not family," I said quietly. "Not in any meaningful way. You and Dad made that decision 9 years ago when you disowned me. You reinforced it every year with your silence, and you confirmed it by treating my home and boundaries as obstacles to be overcome, rather than realities to be respected. That's ancient history, Olivia. People say things they don't mean when they're angry. 9 years isn't ancient history. It's a third of my lifetime. And actions speak louder than words. Your actions have consistently shown that you only value me when I'm useful to your purposes." She sighed dramatically. "I didn't come here to rehash old grievances. I came to offer an olive branch to suggest we try to rebuild. Ryan and Caroline will be starting a family soon. Don't you want to be an aunt to their children?" The manipulation was so transparent it almost seemed sincere. She genuinely couldn't conceive of relationships built on mutual respect, rather than obligation and utility. "I wish Ryan and Caroline happiness," I said honestly, "but any relationship would require acknowledgement of past harm, respect for current boundaries, and consistent change going forward. I don't see evidence of any of those things. So that's it. You're choosing to remain estranged over one disagreement about a wedding venue." This wasn't about a venue. This was about 9 years of rejection, followed by entitlement to my home and life without so much as a genuine conversation. This was about attempting to override my explicit refusal through manipulation and social pressure. This was about fundamental respect. Her expression hardened. "You always were stubborn and oversensitive. Your father was right about you. Goodbye, Mom," I said, closing the door gently but firmly. That conversation marked the final direct contact with my biological family through mutual connections. I eventually heard that my parents had begun telling a revisionist history, wherein I had initially agreed to the wedding but changed my mind out of jealousy at the last minute. This creative reframing didn't surprise or disturb me. I had long since stopped measuring my worth through their recognition or approval. In the months that followed, I filed for a formal restraining order based on the documented pattern of harassment and property violations. The process was straightforward, given the extensive evidence collected, and the order provided legal reinforcement of boundaries I had already emotionally established. That Thanksgiving, I hosted dinner for 20 beloved friends in my home: Zoe and her family, Kelly and her new girlfriend Marcus and David and their extended chosen family, clients who had become friends, neighbors who had supported me through the wedding drama, all gathered around. Tables set up in the same garden where my brother's ceremony had been planned without my consent. As we shared food, laughter, and genuine connection, I looked around at these people who loved me for exactly who I was, who celebrated my successes without qualification, who respected my boundaries instinctively because they valued me as a complete person, not a resource to be utilized. The path to this peaceful moment hadn't been easy. The family rejection at 25 had left deep wounds that required years of healing. The wedding confrontation had reopened those wounds temporarily, but standing firm in that crisis had also provided unexpected closure. I no longer waited for approval that would never come, or recognition that would always be conditional. I had built a life aligned with my values, surrounded by people who showed up with consistency and authenticity. I had learned that family isn't defined by biology, but by respect, reciprocity, and reliability. The house around us, lovingly restored by my own vision and effort, stood as physical testimony to the life possible, when we honor our own worth even when others cannot see it. Every reclaimed beam, every carefully chosen fixture, represented a choice made according to my values, not external expectations. Some bridges cannot and should not be rebuilt once burned. Some losses clear space for more authentic connections. Some rejections ultimately lead to greater self-acceptance than approval ever could. As I raised my glass to toast the chosen family gathered around my tables, I felt a profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. Even its painful chapters, the family that had disowned me had inadvertently given me the freedom to discover my true worth beyond their limited perception. Their final attempted intrusion had given me the opportunity to declare that worth non-negotiable. Have you ever had to establish boundaries with family members who couldn't respect your space? Share your experience in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people who should respect the most. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Remember that your boundaries deserve respect, and sometimes the family we choose brings more love than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps anyone going through similar situations find the courage to stand firm in their own worth.